Welcome to the Drop In with Pindi podcast from Warriors TMA Academy, a podcast for everyone from business inspirational leaders, combat sports enthusiasts, martial artists, and fitness fans. Together, we can build our self-discipline, confidence, and positive mindsets through great leaders. Now, here's your host, coach and former pro fighter, Pindi Matahar.
Welcome, ladies and gents, listeners at home, viewers at home. I'm here with the Drop In with Pindi podcast today with the one and only Mr. Jamie Harper, everyone. Those of you that don't know, Jamie now is running his amazing gym over in Birmingham with his amazing fiance, Soph. But me and Jamie we've known each other a very, very long time. We've disconnected to reconnect, disconnected and reconnected again. But I've been following, even though we've not been connected that much, I've been following this man's journey from a very long time. From when we first started training many, many years ago. We won't say exactly how many because it makes us feel old. But yeah, man, Jamie, so it's good to have you on here. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to travel down to Coventry and be on this podcast, man, with us and to share your journey for everyone to hear, because we were just talking before this started, and there's a lot of people out there that don't have that drive, that oomph about them to take that next step of being caught up in a position in their lives where they're not that happy, but they know what they need to do, but they're not willing to make that jump to do it. And you were in that position many years ago when I first met you. I was in that position when I was working for Purger many years ago. So we were both in a similar situation at the same time. And we both kind of geared each other on with it. But you made that first jump. You were stuck in a job which you thought you were happy, but really deep down you wasn't. And you made that jump. But all these years later, look where you are now. Look what you're achieving. Look how happy you are, more importantly. Look at the energy you got about yourselves. But Jay, before we get into all of that, let's hear about where it all began and what got you involved, not necessarily just in martial arts, but being in that athletic world, in that sporting world, where it all began, man. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's quite, for me, it was funny because I went through a big phase of probably from about sort of 12 to 14. Like my sort of thing was athletics. I was always terrible at football. Football was never my bag. Couldn't kick a ball to save my life.
No way.
That's never really my thing. I think I went to a class once. My dad took me to a little football coaching session at Camden Court. And I was that bad, the kids wouldn't pass the ball to me. So I was like, I'm not coming back here again. I found my little path with athletics. Mainly kind of sprinting, 100 meters, 200 meters, long jump, triple jump. So I was with Godiva Harriers as the club. So I was there for kind of a couple of years. But I stopped there and I think I was about 13, 14. My mum was mad with me because she just bought me a brand new pair of running spikes. I just done this competition in Wales, Cumbran, I think it was. We met, do you remember Jamie Bolch from back in the day?
Yes.
We'd met him, we were talking to him about it. I was really buzzing. And then I don't really know what happened. Like I started getting a few issues, like knee injuries and stuff like that. That sort of made me not want to train as much. And I kind of just stopped. But then from that period then, from being about 14, right the way through up until 20, I didn't really do any fitness at all. So I just completely dropped out. I turned into more of computer games, watching movies, this and that. Got into my sort of career after school.
Did you go to uni or anything like that? Or was it?
Not straight away. So uni was more of a later thing for me. So my kind of journey was at school, finished school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really
enjoy school?
A-levels.
You enjoyed?
I did. I enjoyed school, especially so I moved from Woodlands to Camden Court. I finished my last year 10 and 11 at Camden Court. And for me, I really enjoyed them last couple of years. I was quite used to be a little bit lazy with the schoolwork, but then turned the pressure on when we needed to. Did all right with the exams and stuff, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And at the time, I'd done an engineering BTEC. So that was in my last year, rather than doing sports and PE, I did engineering. And the natural progression with that, obviously we're in Coventry, massive company, Jaguar Land Rover. We know so many people that kind of work in that environment and with that company, that was kind of my next logical step. So 16, I started an apprenticeship with those, 4-year apprenticeship. But this is kind of where my journey into fitness and martial arts kind of came back and started, because especially when I got to about 19, I wasn't enjoying it.
Right.
I felt a little bit cheated by the system in a way, yeah, because I wanted to get into engineering to like do these exciting things, like, you know, you'd see the sexy adverts like Formula One car racing. Jaguar had their F1 team at the time.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, that's going to be me. I'm going to work on the F1 team. I think I got to like second year of my apprenticeship. They disbanded the F1 team completely.
Oh, man.
I was like, oh, mate, it was savage. So I think when that happened, I just felt a little bit jaded, you know, in terms of what we were going down. So rather than this big sexy sell of engineering, just really kind of, you know, it can be so creative. And obviously it can be an amazing career and it's like a solid job for life. But the way that I was sold it didn't come about. And I found myself just kind of working more so in the factory environment, just, you know, making little brackets and doing bits that I wasn't enjoying. And it got to the point where I was just literally, you know, the typical living for the weekend kind of vibe. Yeah. It was sick of the 9 to 5 or 7:30 till 3:30 in that instance. I was sick of the early mornings that weren't kind of, you know, getting up to do something I wasn't enjoying. And I just needed to make that change. And that was the biggest thing. I needed something to be different.
Do you know when you were saying that you need to make that change, did you have any inkling of what route that was at that time? Because I know when I first met you, this is obviously slightly after that, but we were having similar conversations back then. But before you came to do any form of martial arts, or before you came to even get involved with the fitness industry or anything, what were you thinking at that time? Because I appreciate it, like I get it, we all get caught up in thinking, yes, we need a secure income, which obviously, don't get me wrong, we do. We need a 9 to 5, or we need some sort of job security, which technically you got through this apprenticeship. I got it through my apprenticeship when I was working with Peugeot, right? And you do think, yeah, this is the life now. This is what it's all about. But just as you were unhappy and you felt cheated with the system, I was in a similar boat. But like, when was it? What did you realize? Or what do you need to do? Did you have any sort of direction, or what was it?
I think so. Like I was saying before, I got into a phase just watching a lot of films and a lot of, especially a lot of martial arts films, and like playing a lot of games and stuff like that. And I think that was probably my first little bit of inspiration. And I think one of the original ones was the first Ong Bak. Back in the day.
Oh my God, that's a blast from the past.
Yeah. Tony Jaa, like, kicking people with like, so it was like a Muay Thai background.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I'm liking a bit of this, and I'd like to get to know a little bit more about that. But I think I didn't really act on it straight away. And then I remember my mum and dad first got Sky TV installed, and I was just flicking through the channels, watching a bit of Eurosport, and I was just watching this. It was a K1 kickboxing championship. And it was like, I was like, oh, this is interesting, what's this? And Remy Bonyaski at the time was just like leaping across the ring, like flying kicks, smacking people. And I was like, this guy's got it going on. And that was my first little inspiration. But again, I think I didn't act on it straight away. For whatever reason, I think maybe a confidence thing. Like, I hadn't been into fitness. I hadn't been doing any training for like, you know, a long time, talking like 5 or 6 years. So taking that first leap was the biggest thing that I kind of needed to sort of get over. And that step for me, like, we'd gone away. So I'd gone just to Cyprus with a couple of mates. And I remember we walked up to this little hilltop. I think it's called the Church of St. Augustine or something like that, on the top of this hilltop in Petaris. And I was just catching up with my mate from school at the time. And like, he could tell I wasn't happy with where I was in the engineering world. And I was like, I've been looking into maybe like starting some kickboxing or some martial arts and stuff like that. And he was just like, you just need to stop talking about it and just go and do it. Just give it a try. Just go and get started and just like, you know, try somewhere out. And that was it then for me. And I was like, got home from that little trip, did a bit of research, looked around, and this is where my kind of journey started. I found you guys. Obviously my inspiration was initially the Ong Bak and Tony Jaa and
the Muay Thai scene, kickboxing,
and like did my research on total martial arts. You guys were teaching that, and that was my first thing. I was like, this is going to be the scariest thing I've done in years, but let's just try it. if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and just take that first step through the door.
Amazing.
And that's where the journey started in terms of martial arts side of things.
Awesome.
But literally, this is why, like, I think I messaged you straight away when I saw these podcasts coming out. Like, I need to tell my story of what you guys have done for my life, like yourself and Lucky especially. You know, because this is where it all started for me.
100%.
Total martial arts was the thing that gave me that catalyst to, you know, start getting going, turn it around, do something different, and just snap out of that routine.
100%.
And it's just ironic. I remember when I was in the engineering, in that sort of job role, I would do as much as I could to get away from doing the work as much as possible. So I'd take these extended lunch breaks. I'd be taking these little trips out, saying, like, you know, just popping out for my 30-minute lunch, coming back 90 minutes later and stuff like this. And like I was getting this reputation of being lazy at work.
Right.
Which of course I was, because it wasn't for me. I was in the wrong place. I was doing the wrong things. I didn't have that motivation. But then when I started with you guys, you know, I remember my manager saying to me, "Oh, he's just lazy. He doesn't do anything. He's you know, he'll be always one of them. He's never going to make anything of himself in this career and whatever." And I'm just so glad that he was right in terms of that.
Yeah. Because
that pushed me away even more to go and do something different. That's when I sort of started with you guys, started the kickboxing, started the Muay Thai, started the CSW at the time.
That was right. Because I remember now when you first started, and I think I still remember your first day, and you were just buzzing after, and you're like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. This is where I need to be. We started obviously with because obviously being total martial arts, the reason the name was there was because of all the arts we were teaching at the time, and the instructors we had in place to teach at the time as well. But you started off obviously with your Thai boxing, fell in love with obviously the training, the fitness aspect of it. Smacking the pads is always a great thing. You went into, I know you did a bit of tad bit, if my memory serves me right, you did a bit of Kali, the Filipino martial arts, and
you know what, I just come from my gym today, and I was like, I saw the sticks, like I should take them with me, man.
Yeah,
I still got the Kali sticks.
Do it, man, do it.
Back in the day. So.
I remember you doing that, because we used to do some random hours, like as in classes, there'd be a Saturday night class that we used to do, and you I think from my point of view, it was when we started involving a lot of sparring in our Thai training and stuff like that. And then you started doing the interclub competitions where we would travel to like Redditch and different cities like that and doing our interclub competitions. And that's where I saw like a little spark in you. But for me personally, when I saw the biggest change of when it opened up, and I said this, I can't remember what podcast it was on the previous podcast, but it's the same thing for me. But one of the biggest changing factors was when Dave Hill started with us, if you remember that, when he came in to do his grappling, and we were just doing the CSW at the time, and Dave came for a few lessons, and he was competing and he was doing his thing, which is great. And we were like, we need to get on that. We need to understand how to do it, because we were doing our Thai boxing, but we want to get onto the ground. And do the MMA, because back then that was like the new thing, wasn't it? It's like, wow, what? It's nice and fresh, isn't it? And it's like, back then it was a cage fighter, and it's like cage rage and stuff like that. There's no such thing as mixed martial arts. I know it sounds silly, but it wasn't known as mixed martial arts. But I remember when we started doing the gi jiu-jitsu and we started competing, we did some crazy ass road trips, going to the Kent Open, going to London Open and all this stuff. But I think from my point of view, looking out from the outside, that's where you find your real first love, if that makes sense. When you put that gi on and you just start at home, man. Talk to us. You've done a lot of arts with us, but what was the deciding factor of putting that gi on for you? What was the meaning of that for you? Because that's where I saw from the outside that, man, you're in love with this. Do you get what I mean? I know it sounds cheesy to say, but it was the deciding factor of that's what you wanted to pursue. Yeah,
I don't know really what it was about the jiu-jitsu side of things. I think for me it was like, it's very easy to be very physical. Yeah. And I think that, like, as much as I'd never really done that sort of stuff in the past, obviously, of course, all martial arts training is physical. Yeah. But the difference with the jiu-jitsu was that, when you train and spar, you can pretty much spar with someone 100%. Whereas it's different with striking. You can't maintain that, can you? You can't like punch and kick each other full power and stuff like that. So it's, I remember that first inter club I did in Redditch, actually, the Muay Thai inter club. And I think the guy I went up against, he'd had about 6 months of boxing training as well as his Muay Thai. And the first time, I don't know if you remember this, but like the first time I was like, right, we'll just go in there, keep it relaxed.
Yeah,
that was like the whole thing, wasn't it? It was an inter club.
It wasn't a fight.
Well,
it's not supposed to be.
This guy comes in, whoosh, wallops me, and I'm like, whoa.
What's happened here? Yeah.
We're in a fight now. And I think it was just, I enjoyed that. But then I think when we started doing a bit of jiu-jitsu, I think my first real introduction to it was when you guys hosted a Rick Young seminar.
Yes. And he's doing the no-gi stuff, right?
Is it Rick Young, Scottish guy?
Yeah, Rick Young. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he just won like a world championship.
He won the gold.
Came down, taught the seminar for us, and I don't know what it was. It's hard to explain, but I just think I really enjoyed the different elements of it, like, you know, the different grips and the different kind of positions and what you could do with this piece of clothing. That was yeah. It just made that like really interesting for me, and then it kind of just sort of sank in at the time. So it kind of just matched up because I started with you guys. I was still doing the engineer at the time. But I was like, right, we took the first step. I've found this martial arts now. I was training with you guys probably 5-6 days a week, getting as much as I could in there. From doing nothing to that, like I'd found something that I really enjoyed. And somewhere, I think more importantly with you guys is the environment of somewhere you can just belong and be cool and chilled and a nice, like, you know, you're learning all these skills, but it's not what people might think of as a typical martial arts gym. Like, I think from the outside, you look at, you know, a martial arts gym is going to be this place where everyone's kind of trying to kick the hell out of each other and just like, it's really like, you know, rough and intimidating. But you guys created something where it's like, it was chilled, it was fun, it was family, you're learning great skills, but at the same time, it's, you know, like you say, we used to go out together afterwards. We used to go like hitting up Icon and Diva on a Saturday night.
Gosh, great times, man, great times.
So, and I think for me, like I knew then, it's funny how the journey's changed a bit. But I was like, I need a career that can support this. Like I'm loving my training. I want a career that can support this so I can train more and just supplement what I'm doing with the martial arts side of things with the career. So the natural sort of step was to get into personal training and make that something that I wanted to learn that I could then, you know, coach a little bit part-time, train part-time. So it was, I started my course over in Dudley.
Okay.
So I kept driving past, like I was always driving through Birmingham to get there. And then Braulio's Academy popped up. So obviously he was teaching at Stevie B's at the time.
Acox Green.
Acox Green.
Acox Green, I remember that.
And it was literally on my commute home from the course at the time. So we'd finished the course at like 6. They had a class that started at like 6:30 in the evening. So I'd come back through, do a little bit of jiu-jitsu with those guys. And yeah, it's ironic. I think I actually started preferring the no-gi at first. But now I'm like, nah, man, give me that gi.
Give the gi, yeah. That's crazy. But, I think everyone, well, a lot of people I speak to that were involved with, not started with jiu-jitsu, started with other forms of arts before, they always loved the no-gi to start with. And then as soon as that gi comes on, even though you're quite hesitant to put it on, boom, you fall in love with it straight away, right? It's a crazy, iconic story from that point. But with that, you started competing a lot as well, next as well. How did you find, where did that come about? Is that just the drive of doing what you were doing, falling in love with it, and then? Yeah,
I think it's like, for a lot of people, I think it's quite a natural progression just to want to see where you're at, isn't it? Like a little test. The training environment obviously is a little bit different. But when you get a chance to go and compete, you can see where you're at against people that you've never trained with before. So I think that was something that I quite enjoyed. My first ever competition was the Seni Martial Arts Expo.
That was with, is that where we all went down with? Yeah.
And I think with that one, it was...
that was with Mark Perrins when he popped his shoulder out. Do you remember?
Yes,
he got taken down and his shoulder went...
Yeah. And I remember that was right before I was due to go on. I was like, oh, man, what am I doing this for? So I was like, this is like probably the worst decision I've ever made. Yeah. But I remember then going into that competition, and it was just interesting testing yourself against someone who you've not trained with, because obviously training partners in the gym, you kind of learn each other's game, you know, kind of like what the person wants to work on. So it was nice with that competition aspect to go and test against people that don't know who you are, you don't know them. It's literally just, you know, skill versus skill. And I remember my first bout, went in there so tense. Literally, I think I'd been doing jiu-jitsu fully for about 6 months in the gi.
Yeah.
Went in so tense, like straight away I was like, "Rrr." And I remember Braulio shouting, "Relax, bro, relax, man." Trying to like sort of like choke this guy from the mount. And I remember finishing, coming off the mats, and my arms were like claws. Absolutely pumped to the max. I couldn't move my arms at all. I was like, what's going on here? My grips are fried. And Nathan Roberts at the time, he got his knuckles and he was like rubbing them into my forearms to loosen my grips out. And then we went again for the next one. But I think it's just a bit of a natural progression to see where you are. And I don't think I'll ever be like sort of a full-time competitor, but it's nice every now and then just to throw yourself into the mix,
100%.
And just find out what you're capable of and just try and just see where the holes are in your game, I suppose, as well. It's just a part of the development, isn't it? I think like competition isn't necessarily for everyone, but every time I've done a competition, I've come away with something to work on and a skill to improve. My last competition now was 3 years ago, and I did the Grand Slam, Abu Dhabi Grand Slam.
Nice.
was
What was that experience like?
Mate, it's crazy. That was mad.
That's huge. That's a huge platform to compete on, man.
Yeah. So that was like, you'd go down there, it was like laid out really smart. It was in a proper like arena in London, the Olympic Copper Box Arena. And like, it's quite funny. I went into that one super relaxed, super chilled, but I didn't perform that well. I was almost too relaxed. Whereas my competition prior to that, I competed at the All-Stars BJJ in Birmingham. And that one, I hadn't competed for about 7 or 8 years when I went into that. Wow. I took this massive like sort of time out of competition, went in there feeling like super anxious, super stressed. Like I was like, why have I got back into this competing business? And funnily enough, you mentioned Mark and his shoulder popped out. I literally saw the same thing happen at this All-Stars competition.
Oh man.
So in the sports center there, like there's like there was a balcony.
Yeah.
So I was up on the balcony, just getting a bit of a feel for the matches, watching a couple of them, and just saw this guy get slammed and his shoulder popped out, this big scream. And I was like, mate, what am I doing here?
Mate.
So I freaked out a little bit, almost like, you know, had a little bit of a panic attack. The anxiety was building up. And I was like, why am I doing this? And I had to take a little time out, get into the car, do a little bit of breathing. I was doing a bit of that Wim Hof breathing stuff at the time. Bring myself back down there, and then went into the competition, like still like quite stressed, but you just find your rhythm and find your feet. But that anxiety and that stress, like I think that's something that you need the outlet for it. Whatever you're doing. And I think like we kind of talked about this a little bit before we started the podcast, was like these days people don't have that outlet for that stress and that anxiety, and especially the last 12 months with like the pandemic and stuff like that. There's been so many people that don't have that physical outlet and that's something to release, that it's just like you're constantly at that level. And there's no release of that kind of stress and that anxiety. So I think that's one of the things for me that competition was really good for, is it allows you to have that outlet. And as tough as it is at the time, there's the benefit of, you know, learning about yourself, finding out that little bit of release and that little bit of, like you say, just discovering that journey for yourself, really.
Absolutely. Completely agree with that. That's awesome. I 100% understand exactly where you're coming from, because I think the last competition I had, my last competition was just before lockdown with, where was it, in Kent? No, not Kent, sorry. It was in London, down south somewhere. And that was my last comp. And I just remember like the comp before that, same thing as you. I went in stressed, why are you doing this? Why have I got back into it? But the last one I had so chilled, so relaxed, understood my purpose, understood why you're doing it. And you just feel, you just kind of manage it a bit better, right? You learn to understand to manage it a lot better. But for me, on again, from the outside, you found Gracie Barra Birmingham, you started training with the team there, amazing team they had, and they still got like, but back then when you started, you had like people like Nave, obviously, you know, that was there with you as well. you were surrounded by a massive jiu-jitsu community, always, so day in, day out. On top of that, you're doing a degree.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Where did from someone that didn't want to hurry up and get out of school, in a polite way of putting it, and go into work, where did the degree purposes come from, and go back to uni? Was that a bit of a massive, not saying that you had freedom, but what I'm trying to say is that from when you leave school at the age of 16, when you've gone into a full-time job, you kind of become independent. You've got do you get what I mean? You're living your own life and stuff. And then obviously you found yourself jiu-jitsu, you've gone full-time into jiu-jitsu. You've decided to leave JLR, which is a massive achievement in itself, because it takes a lot of balls, in a polite way of putting it, to do something like that, and then go into studying again. How was that transition in life at that time? Because you've gone from that to that, right? It's like a complete flip over.
Well, that's the irony of, I think that guy at Jaguar was telling me that I was lazy and didn't have any drive and any ambition. I think that was like, I've remembered that for years. Like, I was 18 at the time. I'm 35 now, so I've remembered that for like nearly 20 years now, you know. But I always remember that back, and it just fuels me a little bit, because it was, for me, obviously, like the first transition, do the personal training course, be able to train more, be able to kind of, use that as a supplement to what I wanted to do more long term. And then when I did the personal training course, I actually tagged on the sports massage and treatment 4-week module at the end of that, or 4 or 5 weeks it was. But I got into that and I enjoyed that a little bit more. And my lecturer at the time, he was teaching us on the course. He was like, "Oh, you should just you should look into doing this as a degree." So he actually taught the degree course of this at Coventry at the time.
Oh wow!
And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds interesting. Like, I would like to get more into the injury side of things. Obviously, being in martial arts, there's always injuries, there's always kind of aches and pains and niggles and things like that." So I thought, if I can tie that skill in with training, rehab, recovery, it's going to like be a nice little, skill set that I can then use to be able to either work with more martial artists, work with more fighters, but also be able to kind of make a little living from that as well. So it was literally him that kind of inspired me to go to uni with this. It was never part of the plan. I looked into going to uni in the engineering role. They were going to pay for the degrees at the time at Jaguar. They were going to pay to put you through like a 2 or 3 year engineering degree. And for whatever reason, they pulled the funding. And that is probably the single best thing that ever happened to me there. Because I was like, I would have probably just gone and done the engineering degree.
Just for the sake
of it. It was paid for. It's like another step on the ladder. But they pulled the funding. So I was like, I'm not paying, I think at the time it was like 3.5, 4 grand to do something I'm not that bothered about. And that kind of just led to this. It was good because it gave me the final straw to kind of get out of there, First of all, it's not being able to work with the F1 teams or whatever like what's going on there, the sort of the sports side of things. Then they weren't going to fund the degrees. And I was like, I don't know why I'm staying here. I don't enjoy it. It's not serving my purpose. Like, I don't have any passion for it. So I'm just kind of turning up. I'm taking the check, but then I'm just living for the weekend. I'm doing the minimum I can at work. And then, just basically just drinking it away at the weekends. I used to go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, drinking, just partying all the time. And like, I knew something had to change.
Couldn't live your life like that.
No, it's not good especially for like your long-term health and well-being and stuff. It's no way to live. And I was just fortunate that I kind of found these right places at the right time. I found yourself, I found you guys. Then I found the personal training course that worked for my schedule. The lecturer there that actually taught at the uni and said, try it as a degree. And I think at the time, I actually got turned down from Coventry Uni. So this is one of the reasons why when I stopped training with you guys and moved to Birmingham, was that I got turned down from Coventry because I didn't have any any fitness qualifications from school. I didn't have like a PE A-level or PE GCSEs or anything. So like UCB, University College Birmingham, that was kind of like second choice in a way. But it turned out for the best because obviously it was close to where I was training then. I was training full time. And it's just mad how the journey, like one little decision can just make that journey change for you.
Absolutely, man, absolutely.
But I think that's probably one of the biggest things I'd say to people is like, if there's something you're not sure about, something you want to try, just take that first step.
Take the risk, innit?
Yeah.
Take that risk.
You've got to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, like, for yourself as well, obviously, like, the way you've progressed and changed, it all starts with that little bit of a journey, doesn't it? That little
100%.
kind of defining moment. And it just happened that uni, met my now fiance there as well. We both moved to Birmingham. She's from Manchester, I'm from Coventry, but we moved to Birmingham, created a business there. But it's all started, I feel like it all started with that one little decision of
that little light that just, you saw, boom, you got it.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. That's absolutely awesome. That's awesome. And talking of, obviously, you going out there, you had this desire of PTing, earning money from it so you can focus on your training. You touched on injury prevention, you know, like learning about, with martial arts, you get injured, about curing, about fixing, working with athletes that are getting injured and stuff. And you got that opportunity because you got the opportunity to share a journey with your professor, Braulio Steamer, as well, and getting him ready for one of his biggest competitions of his career. And I'm right in saying you were based at one stage after your degree and after your, when you started off, you were based at Grace Barra Birmingham, weren't you, on the second floor or the first floor? I can't even remember how it was, second or third floor it was. And that was your setup, that was your personal training area, you were getting clients in left, right and center. But how was that journey? Because you started off, you've got Mr. Steamer right there who's getting ready for one of his biggest competitions of his career. You're there getting him ready at 6:30 in the morning. Do you get what I mean? It's like it's mad, from studying to then achieving one of your you kind of like ticked off your list that something that you wanted to do was work with athletes, and you got the opportunity. So obviously I know what you're doing now is slightly different, but you managed to take off one of your goals in life, which was to do that. So how did that feel about, I mean, and the journey to that? It's a bit of I know it's a bit of a roller coaster journey, but how did it feel, man?
Well, it was quite ironic actually at the time that I remember when I left Jaguar, one of the first things I said was, right, I'm never waking up at the time it was 6:30 in the morning. It's like, I'm never waking up at 6:30 again. I'm going to live life on my terms, my hours. And now, like, that's a late start for me, you know what I mean?
Now it's 4:00 in the morning.
So at one point it was like 4:30. You set my alarm at some point. So I've moved it back a little bit since lockdown, but it's just funny how it's changed. But like you say, it became natural to do that because it's part of what we do. We get up early, we coach people before work.
Of course.
But my first kind of coaching of athletes actually started with Victor.
Oh, okay.
So I was still in uni at the time, still training, but I needed like a little bit of part-time income to supplement. So I started working at Virgin Active. It's quite funny how the journey works out, because it turns out when we were training at Stevie B's, that was one of the guys I trained with, James Burgess. He was actually a manager of the personal training side of things at Virgin Active. And he was like, just come down and apply for a job. So I started working there. It was the Virgin Active at Five Ways in Birmingham. So I started working there. And then I can't remember fully how it came about, but like Victor was like, I want to work a little bit on my strength and conditioning. I'm working on, getting into competitions more. And we just started doing some things together there at the gym. So we used to come down to Virgin. We used to do some, at the time, it's quite funny like how your training philosophy changes, but we used to do some crazy circuits and stuff like that. So I was working with Victor on that, and he was getting like sort of stronger and fitter, and finding it was helping him with his injuries. I think he'd injured his back previously training. I can't remember the name of the condition now, but he'd like sort of, I think, fractured like a vertebrae at some point. So he needed to rehab from that. So he came to me and we started doing a bit of rehab based on that position. So we started working a lot of single leg strength, a lot of core stability, things that were going to help him to recover from that injury. And then from there, that's when I started working with Braulio afterwards. Then, like, Victor was obviously seeing some great progress and some results. And then he said to Braulio, if you're training for this competition, you should do some strength and conditioning as well and build up on this with me. So that's when we started preparing for the 2009 Abu Dhabi championships. And it's just a crazy journey. Like, so we started preparing there. I think we still maybe been at Stevie B's still at that time.
I think in 2009 you were, but in 2009 you were, and then in 2010 it was 2010 late 2010, that's when it moved to above the shower garage.
Yeah.
And then in 2011, when he prepared for after his op, when he's preparing for Jaccara. And that was I think it's still on YouTube. There's clips of you training him.
Yeah.
It was at the third floor. I'm trying to think.
There's 2 floors. Yeah. So it's like there was the bottom.
You had like a cage in there.
Yeah.
That room. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Ages ago.
Yeah. So I mean, like I'm like just so grateful to Victor and Braulio again for that next step in the journey, because that was giving me the opportunity and the platform to. I think when someone of that high of a level puts their trust in you. Yeah, it's like a massive compliment and it's a massive thing. So, you know, at the time, like you say, Braulio was moving academies. They wanted to have a little strength and conditioning section there. And he wanted me to kind of run that section for him. So that's when we started training a bit more for the 2011 ADCC against Jacare. And it's just mad how the journey evolves. It was a fun time. It was good. It's just, you know,
I know it sounds silly, but did you ever feel pressured?
Massively.
Like, how did you? What was your mindset with that? Because you've just come fresh from a degree. Like, no disrespect, but you've just fresh from a degree.
Yeah.
You're now about to put things into practice. What you've been learning in a classroom, shall I say? Mm-hmm. And then you get 2 of the best athletes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu come up to you saying, "Jamie, let's train," and you're like, "Oh fuck!" Like, it's kind of a good thing. And at the same time, what was your mindset like with that, man? Because that.
It was like, it was interesting. It was tough. I think one of the saving factors was at the time, like, you know, like you say, this was the early days of kind of MMA and jiu-jitsu becoming more well-known in the UK especially. And
of course.
It was still quite fresh at the time in terms of strength and conditioning for these sports. And I think that the biggest thing I could have kind of took from it was that at the time, it was very much circuit based. I don't know if you remember, like, I'm sure me, you and Dave used to do like the 300 workout and all this stuff. Yeah. The film came out, 300, everyone was starting CrossFit and all this. But I kind of had a bit of a different take on it and a different perspective of like focusing more on the resilience and the injury resistance and that side of things. So I think that was good because it gave me a different angle to come at it from. But like you say, it was a lot of pressure because you're training someone that's competing at literally the highest levels of the sport. Yeah. And I kind of remember feeling like, you know, if he like gasses out in the fight or something like that, I've got to take personal responsibility from that. Yeah. But at the same time, it's good because it makes you want to work harder. It makes you want to do more research. It makes you want to kind of, you know, just figure out the best approaches that are going to help that individual at the time. And
so with Braulio at the time, this is for, say, even 2009 when you know, when he was competing then, when he approached you to obviously do that, did you have to, obviously you accepted it, but did you have to go away and research what you already know to basically put the plan in place? And was there anything you ever had to change, or did you already knew what you had to do? How did you go about preparing for this?
Yeah, I think I remember at the time it was quite. I was in a couple of American forums because like America was at the time was quite far ahead of us in terms of their strength and conditioning. You know, they start from like a college age of getting like young kids and teens in the gym, working on strength and power development. So I was quite lucky in that aspect that I just discovered the right sort of resources that worked at the time. And I'm trying to think of the guy's name now. There was a coach that was doing stuff in America, working with a lot of Canadian fighters. And do you remember Dennis Kang from back in the day?
Dennis Kang, what is it?
He's like
in the UK.
He was a Canadian
Dennis Kang,
MMA fighter. He trained a little bit with GSP. There was him, David Loiseau, Patrick Cote. So it's quite early sort of names. But he
pioneers of the sport almost.
Yeah. And I don't even know how I came across it, but I found this kind of resource that he was promoting. I'm sure the coach's name was Jonathan something. But he was working with a lot of these fighters anyway at the time. Yeah. And they just seemed to be doing stuff that was like a step ahead of what everyone else was doing. They were focusing more on not just kind of hardcore circuits and hit stuff all the time. It was like, you know, taking a better approach of build the aerobic system, build the endurance, build the core strength, trying and do all the damage of like martial arts training and focus on balancing the body out. And I was just lucky that I found that resource and started developing more of those sort of methods. Because it's like you say, it's one of those sports where, I mean, I'm terrible for this, working my strongest side all the time, practicing the technique on one side and things like that. So it was good to see someone that was kind of thinking about focusing on balancing the body out. And just that kind of philosophy fitted well with what I wanted to do. So it was scary because obviously like I hadn't really coached that way before. I was working with Braulio and Victor doing these sort of methods and getting them focusing more on recovering from movements and, you know, developing that explosive power, that strength, that squeezing strength. I remember at the time I was really like into the big fitness stability balls. And doing little compound circuits, but adding like the isometric squeezes and stuff like that on those stability balls. All this sort of stuff that it just made sense. Rather than in training people like powerlifters or just doing purely CrossFit and just thinking, right, let's just get someone in a CrossFit session and do loads and loads of like, you know, reps of Olympic lifts and stuff. It was, how can we mix some of that explosive power with things that are going to, you know, develop the isometric strength that the sport requires. So it was a nice time, but it was pressure because it was almost experimenting a little bit.
Without sounding disrespectful, kind of like they were your guinea pigs.
In a way, yeah.
Without being disrespectful.
Because
obviously these are your first proper athletes you're training, right? So.
But I think I think they gelled with it because they were seeing the development and the results, but it was a different approach as well. So I think they've done like quite a lot of machine-based training before, like, you know, the fixed resistance machines and stuff like that. So it was like to go away from that and focus more on how the body moves and kind of getting everything sort of flowing and like fluid. I think they could see the benefits of that, and that's why they kind of sort of gave me that trust to work with them on that.
Actions speak louder, right? Because look at the results he got from that.
Look
what happened in 2009 with him, and look what happened in 2011.
Yeah, that's it.
There you go. And they're the highlights of his career right now. Do you get what I mean? Like I had Bradley here on the podcast a while ago, and even he's, to this day, with everything he's achieved, they're still his highlights. You know what I mean? So that, and you've got massive part to play in that. So it's massive respect to you for that, man, because it's a lot. I don't think you understand the huge impact you've had on their career. Does that make sense? So respect to you for that, man. No,
it's awesome. And I appreciate like that, and I just appreciate those guys, like I say, for giving me the opportunity to work with them on that. And then helping me develop my skill set as a coach as well. And I remember especially 2011 was the biggest test and challenge, because Braulio had come back from that surgery. You know, at the time he had that horrific accident in training.
Tough, man.
I remember seeing the video, and at the time I burst into tears when I seen the video. It was so powerful, and it was scary. And I just remember the emotions that came through, and just to be able to kind of see him then be able to get his focus back, get his training back on track, and, you know, win the biggest competition in the grappling world. It's just amazing. And it's funny now, like the things I love about that sort of story as well is that, you know, there's little setbacks that you don't see. Obviously everyone know that he had the neck surgery and all these side of things, but what they didn't see was that Braulio was actually developed like a chest infection about 3 or 4 weeks out from the fight. You know, he'd been training super hard. He'd been sparring with all the top guys. We're trying to keep on top of the strength and conditioning. And it was just really unfortunate that it just got to the point where, you know, you're training with the top guys. You had Roger coming up, Victor was there, Nagato, all these like just amazing black belts that he was training with. And obviously that sort of level of training, when you're training for that biggest competition in the world, it can take its toll.
With one of the toughest opponents as well.
Yeah, that's it. Jacare was a beast, and like he was like, you know, dominating everyone. But I think, he developed this sort of chest infection, and about 3 weeks out, we were still working on that, trying to get him back in shape, and we had to really kind of like take the gas off that so he could focus on his sparring and his, you know, sport-specific work. But you know, he still pulled it out there just by using that skill and that technique and that focus and understanding how to manage training better. And it's all these lessons that we learned at the time that it's just mad how it plays out. But
it comes down to mindset again, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
It comes down to an individual's mindset about how badly do you want it, about that purpose, about doing something and achieving something in your life. It's so massive, and everyone's got that in them. It's about expressing it out, in my opinion. I think that's so massive, to express it out and throw it out there. I think it's huge. And like I said, actions speak louder than words, and that's his proof in the pudding right there. That was his mindset. Same with yourself. Your mindset about changing your life to where it is now is absolutely massive. And obviously you've had the opportunities with training with these amazing amazing top athletes, which obviously you said it was stressful and pressured, but at the same time, you enjoyed it because look, the results paid off. The results paid off. Look at what they've achieved from it. Then you spent a lot of time at GB Birmingham with working in that strength and conditioning platform right there. But what was your, because obviously you've come away from that as well, but what was the decision? Because between then and working there, what made you come away from it to now doing what you're doing? What was the reasons behind that?
So I think at the time it was like, GB Birmingham, they wanted to expand the academy a little bit and introduce like things like a yoga studio and stuff like that. So we found our own space for the strength and conditioning, the martial arts side of things. I was fortunate the guys would still come and train with me there as well. But I think it's just a natural progression. Like you say, towards the end of that, we started working with less of the martial arts. We still worked with martial artists, but not as the core focus.
Yes.
So we were trying to bring some of those fitness principles into the general population and general public and help those guys to develop as well. And I think it's just a natural progression. We needed a bit more space. We needed a space where it could just be solely focused on the people that were kind of coming into the gym to train. So obviously, like as you know, with the shared space, sometimes it's tough because we started working with a lot of females. And as much as like, we know what our academies are like and, your academy, GB Birmingham, they're such friendly places. But for especially for some of the females to walk through the door of a martial arts academy,
of course,
it could be quite intimidating. So I think that was one of the things that for us, it was good to get that extra little space where we could just kind of, it was just our own fitness facility. We could open up the hours a little bit more, be able to kind of develop from there. So we moved to, it's about sort of 5-10 minutes away down the road. So we're still local in Birmingham. But just kind of wanted to then develop this side of fitness and health and be able to kind of take more people on a journey where discovering your fitness and discovering your sort of like your interest and passion in it can literally help to transform your own life. And I think just having that space to do that has been like a massive thing that's able to and allowed us to just develop and grow in terms of who we coach. So it's just interesting how it develops, but I think that's the biggest thing for us now is we wanted to build a business where you can just like say, help people discover their
inner selves,
their own inner self.
Yeah,
perfect way of wording it. And it's like, you just need that catalyst for people.
And
some people just need that environment. They need that community. They need that kind of like sense of belonging to something. And like martial arts is quite niche in terms of like this. Some people just find it really intimidating to start that. Obviously the fitness is a bit more accessible for like the wider population and the wider people to get started with. But as we've developed over time, it's just our big thing is just developing these core principles that we believe in. So the business is called BFAST Fitness. And we've got our 5 key principles. So BFAST is an acronym for balance, function, attitude, self-awareness, and taking control. And these are kind of our core values that we believe in terms of developing a well-rounded mindset around fitness. So balance is obviously, I'm a big believer now. I love training. I love pizza, man. I love training, I love my pizza, I love my food. So I don't want to be, we don't want to be like a body transformation center where it's all on super restrictive training, restrictive meal plans. We want to kind of have that balance of enjoying training, enjoying food, finding that work-life balance, finding that time for yourself. So that balance is like the biggest thing about what we sort of believe in.
That's awesome, man.
The function is about, your physical and mental function. So obviously having a body that performs well, but having the mind that goes with it as well. So again, we don't just want to be, developing like the mirror muscles, but like you're not focusing on that inner self, that kind of, we want to build that mental resilience as well for people. So that's kind of all about mental and physical function. The attitude is just developing an attitude of, the main thing is, like you say, getting out your comfort zone, being willing 100%. To go and try something, being willing to take that next step in your journey, and not holding yourself back too much. Because it took me a while, when I first started thinking about martial arts and watching the films and taking that first step, it probably took me a couple of years to make that first step. So we just want to nurture more people to kind of take that first step, have the attitude of, you just need to kind of give things a little go, give it a try, fail forwards. Don't be scared to make mistakes and mess things up. Like, we all have to learn and develop, but you've got to put yourself in that situation first.
Yes.
And not kind of hold yourself back. So that's the A. The S, self-awareness. We're like big into kind of self-reflection, understanding like what you enjoy, what you are strong at, what perhaps you're not so strong at, understanding, you know, what you do in your day-to-day routines that might be taking you off track at the minute. So we want to develop that self-awareness property within people to be able to then make a plan to get away from it. So a big thing for me, my self-awareness at the time was, you know, I saw myself going down this path of living for the weekend, getting down in the dumps, drinking too much, just not really having anything that motivated me. And I was just lucky that I had the self-awareness to understand that this isn't where I want to go. But some people, we just need to kind of nurture that a little bit more and help them just kind of hold up that mirror. You know, the ostrich analogy of taking your head out of the sand and not being scared to see like the faults that you might have or the problems that you might have that you need to work on and develop. But like having that self-awareness to understand how you can then take that next step, it's just such a crucial thing.
100%.
And then finally, the taking control, like you say, is just, you've just got to do the work.
Absolutely.
As much as we want to kind of nurture people, and we are a bit more of a sort of a steadier approach with things, we just want people just to do the work. So whether it's like, you know, if it's starting your journey, take that first step, take control. If it's developing yourself, if it's pushing to a new goal or a new limit, or, you know, improving your nutrition or whatever it might be, it's just, you've got to take control of that. The only person that's responsible for our outcome in life is us.
Of course.
And I think it's hard, isn't it? Because as a coach, I'm sure you're aware as well, like, it's sometimes people think that we're the ones that will get them to where they want to be. But we're only the catalyst. We're just that tool. Like, we can't literally follow someone around 24/7 and, you know, make sure they're eating right, make sure they're training, make sure they're turning up and not doing their sessions. It's about like, the more we can take that responsibility on ourselves and understand that we have to take control.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing. And if you can develop them skills, it's
such a fine line, isn't it? At the same time, because I completely 100% understand where you're coming from, because it's such a fine line in the sense where you get people that say, yeah, I want to come and train and I want to achieve X, Y, and Z. But they almost want you to achieve it for them and then them to get the recognition for it. Does that make sense? And I completely get it. And I have to say the same thing here. Look, I said, all you got to do is turn up. I'll promise you, we'll deliver. We'll give you X, Y, and Z, but you've got to turn up. Just put the work in. Once you start putting the work in, you start getting results. It's as simple. It's as simple as that, isn't it? Almost. But no, I think it's such a great. Your motto in this business, in your new business, shall I say, is awesome. I think it's great because from where you started, in the sense of where it was, from an athlete's point of view, you had to do this. I bet it's strict diet plans. It was this, to now being slightly laid back and opening up to the average Mr. and Mrs. Smith out there and not your athletes, which, don't get me wrong, I think that's absolutely amazing to see. And if you do you think that's down to the evolution of the sport we're in as well? And the sports and the science behind strength and conditioning as such, or the human body in a sense? And what I mean by that is I'm going to use jiu-jitsu as an example. I'm going to use MMA as an example. But where MMA was 10 years ago, in 2011, to where it is today, is completely different, and it's evolved so much. Even from a strength and conditioning point of view, you touched upon it earlier, where you were saying, do you remember the days we used to do the 300 workout? Because we thought that was it. Heavy circuits, blast it out, snatch, kettlebell, this and this. Whereas it's kind of the opposite now. It's not as, the intensity's still there, but it's not as burning yourself out doing the 300 workout. It's almost like you said, holding yourself. Doing a dead bug, do you know what I mean? And things like, you know, having that approach to it. You're heavily into the science behind it all. So where did this approach come from, where you're like, we don't want to be so strict on, you got to eat X, Y, and Z at this time. Where did that all come? Like, what was that mindset from? Because that's how you started to come around in a circle and be like, well, we don't need to worry about that much so far. Does that make sense?
Well, it's interesting. There's a couple of things. I think one of the biggest things for me is that fitness in some aspects is, from the outside looking in, can seem quite exclusive to people in terms of, you know, it doesn't bring everybody in. It's like, if you think of one of probably the biggest culprits is Instagram.
Yes.
Instagram, and the way that like fitness is perceived now is people think that to be in the shape of your life, you have to be absolutely six-pack shredded. You have to be, you know, working on your glutes and your biceps and all this sort of stuff. And like the industry is kind of trended towards the epitome and the gold standard of health and fitness being what we see as a physique model.
Right.
So the problem with that is that physique models, more often than not, actually have a pretty damaged relationship with their training and the nutrition and their kind of mental well-being. And I've seen this like time and time again from, you know, just kind of looking from the inside out in that world. And I was going to get into it myself at one point, but people just get so focused on the way that they look as the only kind of element of health and fitness. And for me, it's about more than that. You know, I didn't start my journey necessarily to work on my physique in that aspect. It was part of it. Like, I was super slim at the time. Had a little bit of a beer belly from going out too much. I was like super skinny.
Enjoying the beers.
And I wanted to work on that aspect of it. But it was never my main focus, like, of, you know, I need to look like X, Y, or Z or this person. But I just think it's really unfortunate that that's the way that the fitness industry is trending online because of Instagram, because of like
power of social media.
Yeah, like these sexy brands and stuff like that that are like, you know, showing people that are ripped and shredded or super muscular and just pushing that as the gold standard of fitness. But I know so many people that are like that, but their mentality around it is broken. They're never good enough. They never feel good enough. They always have something to work on with the way they look. You know, training is like sort of solely focused on the way they look as opposed to how they feel, especially like, you know, when it comes to dieting as well, like super restrictive diet plans and things that aren't sustainable long term. We see all these things and it's hard because it's just trying to break away from people's understanding of that it's not the be all and end all. Like, you know, your physique and fitness should like kind of work together. It shouldn't just solely be about physique. It shouldn't solely be about fitness. Like, you can tie all these elements together.
Yes.
But the biggest thing for us was bringing people in that would think that fitness and personal training is all about that kind of that look and that way, and you know, people being obsessed about the mirror and stuff like that. Whereas for us, it's just getting people in to start working better, feeling better, having that balanced life and that balanced approach. And yeah, like not having that damaged relationship with exercise and food, not treating like, you know, you've gone out for a pizza the day before, you don't need to get straight back in the gym to punish yourself for it and work that pizza off. Yeah. It's part of life, it happens, you know, like it's enjoyment, it's social, it's family going out and things like that. And it's just getting that balance down so 100%. That we can, you know, understand that this is a lifelong journey. My biggest sort of pet hate at the minute is these like really restrictive, like 12-week transformations and stuff like that you'll see plastered all over Instagram and things like that. And it's sexy, it sells. Yeah. People will sell this like the before and after photo, you know, they'll put someone on like a really restrictive plan. You've seen the shows like Biggest Loser and stuff like that. They'll put people on super restrictive plans in terms of, you know, really kind of like low calorie diets, combine it with really intense exercise. And they'll get that before and after picture. They'll see this amazing transformation that's happened in 12 weeks. But what about after that? What about after the after picture when people can't sustain that anymore? They haven't learned the skill to be able to keep those results. It's been so tough to stick to that they end up kind of just breaking and binging after that cycle. But, you know, hey ho, I've got my before and after. Yeah. I can put that on Instagram. Yeah. But then they don't have the support behind it. 100%. So like our ethos was trying to really fight against that, trying to kind of just explain to people that, you know, fitness can be a transformative, literally a life-changing journey. But if you develop that bad relationship with it and see it only as a way to diet or only as a way to work yourself into the ground, you don't get all these other benefits.
Do you find with that as well, everyone's mental health has changed? Their mindsets are a lot better with it as well, because I can understand where you're coming from 100%. And I'll be honest with you, it's the first time I've heard something like that, and it's great. It's so, like, to me, from the outside point of view, and I'm hearing this, I'm like, wow, this is actually really cool. I'm actually getting attracted to this. Does that make sense? It's like, yeah, because you kind of have a positive relationship with training and fitness. Yeah. and I'm going to talk from personal experience of mine, but like when you've seen me compete, when I was fighting, and you had to jump on the scales the day before the fight, where we've got no water in us, we're dying of death because we've just had to sit in the sauna for like 5 hours, but we look absolutely insane and shredded, and you're there on the scales and you're posing. To then having the fight, competing, win, whatever it may be, whatever result you get afterwards. But the routine that myself and even people like Dave Hill, I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning him again about this as well. But as soon as we had our fight, it was binge, binge, put the weight back on a tiny bit, and then we'd kill ourselves in training. But like even now, after so many years of me not competing, I love competing, but I hated the weight cut of competing. Does that make sense? I like to this day, like I can't even sit in a normal sauna. When I go on holiday with the wife and we like, you know, they want to, I can't stand a sauna. Does that make
PTSD?
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, I see a sauna and I start shaking and I start like, you know, trembling and all sorts. Even sitting in a hot bath because of the salt baths we had to do to cut weight. But I can understand where you're coming from, because a lot of people, the power of social media has affected everyone's mental health. Everyone portrays themselves on social media as this iconic figure. Right. Don't get me wrong, and I think it's so important to actually see the reality behind it. And I think you've touched on that, and I think that's beautiful to hear. But now the people you're getting, do you find their mental health a lot happier in a polite way? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, the thing I will say is, unfortunately, because of like this, you know, this perception of what it should be in terms of health and fitness, we have a lot of work to undo. And that's the hardest thing, because people still think, like, people will come to us and initially they'll show us a photo of someone that's kind of absolutely ripped and shredded and
want to be like that.
Jacked, and I want to be like this person. And like, it's hard because sometimes we have to kind of, you know, you have to remind people that it's not always the best way. You know, focusing on that's not always the best thing. And you've got to understand, you might not, if you get to that point, you might not be happy. I know so many people that get to that ripped and shredded position and they're not happy with like that outcome. There's always more to be done. There's always this part they're not happy with, this part they're not happy with. That's why we try and work away from that mindset and just understand, you know, like, life's for enjoying, life's for living.
Of course.
And like, our little strap line is helping you to get in the shape of your life without it taking over your life. And that's such a big, powerful thing for us, because that's what we believe in at the minute. Like, you know, I've been a coach and a personal trainer now for nearly 15 years. That's when I sort of graduated. Now, I think this will be my 15th year coming up in August.
That makes me feel old, bro. Sorry, that's scary.
I feel.
Oh man, that's crazy.
But yeah, like, even throughout that, like, I'm not obsessed with being in the gym every single day. I like to find that balance. I like to train. I like to exert myself. I like to get out on my bike. But I don't want it to be the only thing.
You don't want it to take over your life.
Yeah, because I think there's just so much more. It becomes tough when it's the only thing that you've got. It's tough because you've just got sometimes nowhere to move. If something goes wrong, say you pick up an injury or whatever, and we see that people get really upset and really down because they can't do the thing they love. And obviously we all get that. We've all had injuries where we've had to stop training. But what we want to develop is the other aspects and the other side of people, to say, you know, this is a lifelong journey. You know, I broke my collarbone falling off my bike years ago, and I couldn't train properly for best part of like 6 to 8 weeks. But it wasn't the only thing I had at the time. I still could like enjoy the other elements of it.
Of course.
Of the fitness journey and the nutrition journey and the mindset journey. So that's the biggest thing we want to help people discover, is that, you know, that bigger purpose. And, you know, for some people, it's my biggest passion would be to help more people to discover their own journey and get out of their own little rut. Like, it's where I've been from. I was never massively overweight. I wasn't obese or anything. Like, I was really slim. I was really, like, I was quite weak and stuff like that. So my goals in terms of strength was more building strength and building some muscle mass and improving my confidence. But ultimately it was about having a better quality of life for myself and getting out of that and using that as the catalyst to like move forwards. And it's great now. It's amazing. One of our long-term members, she's just started her PT qualification. She's she's, you know, in the marketing world at the minute, and she's really does amazing with the job. She's really high up, but she's used that fitness platform when she started and is now using that to maybe look into a sort of fitness career, even if it's part-time. And like little things like that, when these sort of journeys happen and you've inspired someone to do that, it's just such a powerful feeling. And like, you know, that was you was my inspiration for that. I saw you doing the coaching and like enjoying that life and just you know, Mate, every time I come to that academy,
yeah.
Even on the tough days, like, you know, everyone has their hard days, but there's always like, you know, you show up, you put a smile on people's faces, you do the job.
Absolutely.
And that inspired me to want to take myself in that direction.
That's amazing. So powerful, honestly, man, that's absolutely unbelievable to hear. But you're now doing this with your, like you said, your fiance Surf. How's it feeling working with your fiance? Because I know a lot of people find that awkward as well. But how are you guys finding that, man? Working alongside it. Do you have your good days, bad days? Or
yeah, of course. Let me be honest. We're not filming this, are we?
Yeah. Turn the cameras off, guys.
No, but I'll be honest, and I've told her this story before. But I was like, when before she started working with me, it was like I was scared. Because I had this routine and I had my own little thing. And I was like, this is all going to change. If she comes on board and we start working together, this is all going to change. I can't go home in the afternoon and stick the PlayStation on anymore. And I wasn't sure how it was going to work. You know, like we literally lived together, trained together, worked together. And at the time, it was quite a daunting thought to you know, we are literally together pretty much all day, every day.
Of course.
But it's just worked out so well and it's balanced so well. Like I'm quite erratic and quite off the cuff and quite unplanned, and like I've got all these ideas that buzz around in my head, and like we'll catch one every now and then and put it into place. But she grounds me and like allows me to, you know, she brings me back into line. Like yesterday, we sat down at lunchtime yesterday. I'd just done the morning shift, got back. She's like, right, I've got a list of jobs we need to get done. And I was like, I needed that. In my life, because I'm quite, like I say, I'm a bit off the cuff sometimes, a bit erratic, I'll miss things, and she kind of just brings that balance down.
Grounds.
Definitely. And when we started working together in the gym, she just brought a softer touch to the training as well, and that's probably part of the development of how we've moved away from purely athletic based into more general population, general well-being. She just brings that balance to me, because sometimes I can be a little bit like of a harder edge of the coaching side of things.
Of course.
Like sometimes I don't have that same empathy that she can bring to it. And she's really helped me to bring that empathy out and understand that, you know, people go through their own struggles and their own journeys, and it's not always just about, come on, let's just get the work done,
bam,
do it.
Blast
it. So I can get frustrated because, you know, my journey was I had to pull myself out of it and do the work. And that's what I want more people to do. But so it's very understanding of, you know, more people go through different struggles. Their journey's not my journey. Things that I'm good at, they might not be good at, but things that they're good at, I'm probably terrible at.
Of course.
And she helps me understand and see that from the business perspective. So when she came on board, that was just really useful for me to kind of soften my edge a little bit. Like I say, be more empathetic when it comes to coaching fitness. Because not a lot of, it's hard to find that sometimes especially like say, going back to the Instagram type coaching scene. Sometimes it's all about, you know, we get that perception that it's all about crushing people and driving people into the ground and things like that. Whereas a lot of people just need to be heard. They need to understand and know that someone cares for them and their well-being. And I think that's where like Soph helps me bring that side to the business even more. I can't remember who said this quote, but it's like, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think I kind of heard this from like a fitness coach, Alan Cosgrove. But it's true, like, you know, even in this day and age, so many coaches are all about how much knowledge they've got and how much more they know. And sometimes people will try and baffle people with the science of, you know, fitness and nutrition and things like that, rather than putting it into layman's terms and just showing someone that you care about their development and their well-being.
Do you find that comes back to, I know I can relate it back to martial arts, because it's like you could be competing as an example or rolling with one of your teammates on the floor here in training, but then you always find the fundamentals always work. I know that sounds stupid to say, but like you could have someone that's an amazing inverted guard and all this, but just passing. I know it sounds silly, but it's just the fundamentals, isn't it? And it's the same, I think it's the same philosophy you've got right there with your training and the analogy you got behind it there, like what you've just said there. Hit the nail on the head. Don't need to worry about giving the science behind it, because in the politest way of putting it, the person that you're training may not want to know that. They just want to see results, and they want to know, like you just said, that you care about them. Does that make sense? You put arm around them if they need that. And I think it's an amazing thing. And the motto you got with you and Soph there, at your place is just, I think it's great. I'll be honest with you, it's all new to me. That is today, I'm hearing about it, and it's just it's so appealing to me. It's so attractive. Does that make sense? It's like, wow, man, that's awesome.
I think that's the biggest thing is like, you know, we don't shout about it loud enough. So we've got to get that voice out there. Like we started doing a bit of a podcast to talk through these elements a bit more and get that sort of that out there. And it's nice, you know, like I'm sure you've had it with yourself as well. Like people see a different side to you when you start talking about these things.
100%.
Perhaps things that you don't always push out that message. But I think that's like the great thing about audio and video is it puts the context and the story behind the person and the individual and their beliefs. So I think that's like a really powerful way to kind of show people how we're different. Most of all, how we differ from these other gyms and these other kind of fitness programs. But I think it's just important. And I think, like I say, we need to shout louder about it.
100%.
Because we've had this thing in the tank for so many years.
I was about to say, because I've obviously I follow you on social media, and as you know, social media nowadays is so powerful. It's a huge thing because it's changed in the last 5 years dramatically. But you guys need to boost about it more, man. Like I've seen some of your videos that you recently posted, and they're great, and it's awesome. But yeah, man, spread it out, spread the word even more, because I think you guys will truly succeed even further than you already have done. I think it'd be awesome. But touching on all of everything what you've just gone over there, but in 2020, it's been a shambles of a year for the whole for the whole world, not just the UK, the world. I know everyone's dealt with it differently. I've dealt with it differently to others. It's affected everyone, not just individuals. It's affected everyone. How about you and Surf? Like, how did you guys face it when it first happened initially? And how did, and obviously, because you'd only moved into your new place, was that? Or were you, or in the new gym, was it? Or?
We've been there a while, so we were there 6 years last year, but we had a big refurb in 2019. And we were just kind of finding our feet. So we'd invested in a couple of like coaching, business coaches like that are in the fitness space that helped us to develop the product, develop the actual sort of layout and the setting and things like that. And we were just really finding our feet with that. Yeah. And then next thing you know, it's like, boom, lockdown. You got to close the gym. I remember like literally it was a Friday night, I think, when they first announced the first lockdown in March. And I just wanted to kind of do a little live video for the members in our group. Yeah. I just like, before I did it, I just burst into tears. I was like, we've worked so hard to build this up. And then at the time, no one, you know, we didn't know anything, did we? There was no information about kind of government support or grants or how long it would be or anything like that. So we were just kind of stepping into this big unknown. And it's like, we were just finding our feet. In March last year, we had our best month that we'd ever had. And then it's just like literally the carpet's pulled out from underneath you straight away. And it was tough. Like it was hard at first. We had to take I think we took like 3 or 4 days off to say, look, guys, you know, this is a massive shock to us. We thought we'd be, you know, able to work around this. Unfortunately, we're going to have to close the gym. And at the time, I think we thought it was going to be for like 2 or 3 weeks. I remember saying on this video,
but that was what I was told. Yeah. That's what I was told. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, obviously, as you know, it ended up being 4 months. And for a business like these where you thrive, and especially yourself with the events and all that side of things, we need that to be able to survive and continue and go. And it was like just a big shock to the system. So it took a bit of time just to understand where we were going and how we were going to stay and like be able to survive. And, you know, we're just lucky that the people that we've brought in and the way that we coach, we've developed such a great, strong community. As you have here as well, the people that will support you through thick and thin. Absolutely. So when we kind of transitioned to online, we had members come with us, and that saved us. So we're ever grateful to those guys for, you know, sticking with us. Absolutely. Some people were fortunate to still be getting, you know, they were paid as normal. Yes. They were still there. So we're like, look, just don't touch my membership. Just leave it as it is. If something changes, then obviously we can discuss it down the line. But we're just really fortunate to have that, because at the time we didn't know what was going to happen with the government support. Obviously, it came up, we got some support with the grants and things like that, which has really saved us, because, you know, as you know, like when you've got a building this size and you can't use it, you can't bring that income in, you can't sign new people up to pay the bills. It's challenging.
It's hard. It's very tough, very tough. Did you have a lot of clientele that you had to physically help mentally as well, that was suffering with their mental health, on top of obviously how you're already feeling and how Surf's feeling? How was it trying to put your own feelings on pause to help the people in need that are your clients? How was that?
Yeah, I think it was a big thing for a lot of people the biggest comment we've had from a lot of people is you just help me keep some sense of normality and routine. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like we still had similar session times onto what they would do in the gym. So although it was like a different delivery format, we gave people all our kit from the gym, all our dumbbells and barbells. People took them home, so we were still able to program a little bit. Yeah. But people were just thankful we tried to, as best as possible, keep the community alive, give them the routine, give them the structure. And it's, you know, it's tough training from home. Like, massive shout out to people that have done that. As you know, like, I'm sure you've had plenty of people here that found it difficult. Yeah. But if, for that sort of group of people, if you can provide that service and you can still keep showing up for them, it just helps people. And we've had a couple of members join us in the last couple of weeks who said that they were with a previous gym before, and throughout the lockdown, their gym kind of gave up on them. And it was tough because they needed somewhere, they needed that support, they needed that routine, but they just kind of, their gyms kind of, obviously it's hard because they would have struggled as well. Of course. They'd lost that focus. Like I know for yourself, like I'm sure you had moments where teaching on Zoom is like,
it's hard. It's the hardest thing.
Step on screen.
It's that I found, for me personally, teaching on Zoom, at first it was one of the hardest things to get used to, because I know I used to coach you many years ago, but the way I coach, I have to interact. I need interaction, just like everyone does. But what I mean by that is I take my classes seriously, but I want people to enjoy themselves whilst they're on the mat, whilst working hard, right? Yeah. So I have my music playing, I'm shouting, I'm pushing people on. I have a little banter with them, and before you know it, that hour class is gone. Does that make sense? And it's like, and everyone's leaving here with red face, work hard. They've learned, more importantly, they've learned something. But when I remember changing over to Zoom, and I had to mute everyone because there's just too much too much interference. Does that make sense? I remember like teaching, I'd be like, all right, guys, you got it? And it's like tumbleweed moment. Oh, crap. And then so it took so long to adjust. I couldn't play music because then for them it was distorted. So all they could hear me doing is breathing. Like, like this, does that make sense? And it's like, that is just so hard. And gosh, I remember I tried, like, we did it. I was teaching teaching about 4 classes a day on Zoom, and it was difficult. It's just really difficult. I'm so glad I don't have to do it again. Does that make sense? Hopefully, we don't have to do it again. I'm glad, and I'm thankful for the people that stayed tuned, stayed logged on, stayed training at home, because it was tough. I was trying to teach jiu-jitsu on laminate flooring. It was tough. Do you know what I mean? But we got
it's like that old school hardcore.
It is honestly real difficult, but we got through it. We got through it together as a team. That's the more important part of it. But like, for me, I found the hardest thing was the interaction. Yeah. Because I didn't know really deep down what my student was feeling at the time. Does that make sense? Because face to face, you can see it, you can hear it. On Zoom, you can't. You have to go really close to the screen to see it. Does that make? And it was a difficult time, man.
Because that's like you say, the big thing about coaching people face to face is, you know, we used to go down a very much kind of quite a scientific approach. We'd measure percentages and like work things off, you know, like based on the percentage of their 1 rep max and things like that. But like the people that we coach and the people that we train, they're busy people with busy lives, you know, stresses like work stress, relationship stress, money stress, house stress, whatever it might be. So you can't train people like that. Yeah. That was very much coming from my athletic background of, you know, these guys, all they do is eat, sleep, train. Yeah. And you can do that then because that's their sole focus. When people have got that other side of like life and stress, it's, you know, you just need to coach the person that's in front of you when they come in. So last week, they might have squatted 100 kilos for 10 reps, but this week they might come in and be absolutely burnt out, completely tired, like had a stressful week with work. Of course. And when you're with someone in the gym, you can sense that a lot more easily. You know, like you say, you're close to them, you can see their face, you can see their reactions, you can just see their mannerisms. Yeah. All these things that you can't pick up on a screen, it really kind of, it just takes away from that coaching process. And as much as Zoom has been great for us the last year, it's still, for me, the face-to-face thing that I can't imagine myself being a purely online coach for that reason. Like, I'd like to maybe have more online elements, but you know, like the community, the coming in, having the laugh, having the banter. Like if I'd have started training with you online, we wouldn't have the same relationship. No. It's just different. And like say, even though like we've not spent loads of time together, like since I left Coventry.
Yeah.
We meet up again day one. It's just like
how it was,
like it was yesterday.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think you can't create that community and that connection without the face-to-face element.
It's the energy that you bring.
That's it.
And I want to make it clear, I'm not complaining whatsoever. Thankful that we had Zoom. Thankful, like I got to deliver classes, and I'm sure you are, and that your members stayed tuned. I'm thankful for even me when I was doing my own training with Professor Victor on their GB channel on Zoom and stuff, and I got to keep up with my training with them, even though it wasn't in physical contact with one another, but we still managed to make the best of a bad situation in the best way we possibly can. But we got through it, and we're back at the gym. We're back on the mats. You're back at your gym. You're back with your clients, and it just feels absolutely amazing, man.
Yeah,
so it's great. What any big plans that you guys have got coming up with the gym side of it, or any? What's the long-term goals there? What are you looking to achieve from all of that?
So our next step now really is, we were due to get married last year, September.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Obviously, that fell apart with like restrictions and COVID and stuff like that. So we've rescheduled it for this September now.
Amazing.
But obviously our big thing now is we need to start building a proper team again now and being able to like grow to that next sort of stage. Like we want to be able to, the biggest thing, this is one of the reasons it's quite selfish. We want to have a nice honeymoon together.
Why not?
That's the problem with having a business where we run it together and we don't have a team. If one of us is off, then we're not spending that time together. So it's, at the minute we've kind of, because of restrictions and stuff, we have like 10 sort of pods in the gym, so 10 zones. And everyone kind of follows the program, but they've got their own space and their own kit. So sometimes we'll just be one of us in coaching, but if one of us has got the evening off, we're not spending it together. So our big thing now is we want to build that team. We want to be able to kind of also, like, as you know, you can't always look at the outside picture when you're sort of in the coaching all the time.
So
it's hard, like, to be able to take that step back and view like the next steps for the business. But for us, the next step for sure is to bring a coach on board, be able to bring someone else in, like nurture them, bring them through like the intern pathway that we're going to develop. And just create this next kind of level really for us. Being able to give someone else the opportunity that we've had and the coaching that we've gone through. Because even for new people starting out in the fitness industry, it's a tough gig to get into these days. Some of the models at the bigger gyms are quite tough for people to break into personal training. They either want lots of unpaid hours or quite high rents. Our big thing is, so we were part of a body called the IFBA, International Fitness Business Alliance. We did a lot of work with them to develop our platform. And their big thing was, they want to get coaches, they want to get the fitness industry to a professional standard across the board. So they want to bring coaches in with holiday pay, sick pay, development pathways, continuing education, like a proper sort of salaries and wages and things like that. And that's the way we want to kind of develop. So we can build a team where people want to grow with us. Because we've kind of had people part-time in the past, and it's been quite tough because when you can't sort of fully like pay someone the right way, things like that, sometimes it can be tough to be able to kind of keep them interested and motivated to stay on board. So that's our big thing business-wise, to build that up.
You want to give people the right opportunities with it, with that secure salary side.
That's it. And I think like we're happy with the space we've got. We love the space. It's like good size for what we're doing at the minute. So no major plans to expand, but my big thing is wanting to be able to explore other areas as well and other interests, and having the time to do that. So the gym is one big side of it. I also want to develop my interest in other areas. Speaking to your cameraman Manny was one of the big things as well. So like I've been getting into a little bit of vlogging and videos, filming, and it's something that I kind of want to work on a bit because I love like watching stories develop and stories unravel. That's what it's all built on, isn't it? Like life 100%. Is about stories. So I think when you can kind of pull that out from someone and discover like little things you don't know about people, that interests me a lot. Awesome. So that's something I want to kind of work and develop on. But it's just kind of quite fluid at the minute. No sort of set specific plans, but other than I was get some coaches in, take that nice honeymoon.
Do it, man. Well deserved, man. Why not? Why not? That's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, Jay, just going back to like thank you for sharing the whole story of like how you got to where you are today, because it's so inspiring to hear. And I think it's huge to hear the fact that you had to take that step by back in the day, leaving JLR, being truly happy with yourself to take that step and then progress to where you are today. Look at your mindset where it is now. Look at your mental health to where it is now. What you're doing with Surf, with running your business, it doesn't feel like work to yourselves, does it? It's a passion that you absolutely love, the motto you have behind it. For someone stuck at home now today that's gone through the whole horrible pandemic that we've gone through, what advice would you be willing to give them, in the sense of, just in a polite way of putting it, giving them that kick up the backside, to give them that drive? Like, what would you be saying to them right now to give them that next step?
I think for me, the biggest thing is just, it comes back to that sort of self-awareness principle that we've got, and just being willing to explore a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy to get stuck into your day-to-day routine, especially for, I mean, I was quite young when I made the transition away from engineering. So I was looking at the aspect that I was still living at home and I could afford to kind of quit my job. I'd saved up enough money to pay for my PT course and train and things like that. But my biggest thing was like that little journey of exploration and just giving yourself a bit of time, setting some time aside to develop yourself, because it's so easy. I think so many people, we fall into that routine. Work's been a tougher day at work. I need to go home. I need to relax.
Yeah.
I need to look after myself. I need to, stick Netflix on, have a drink and whatever. And sometimes that's fine, but sometimes that then becomes your normal routine.
Yeah.
And you'll have that tough day, but your routine then just becomes living to work. So, you have that stressful day, you're not enjoying your job or whatever's going on. You'll go home, you get into the routine, Netflix, eat, drink, sleep, repeat. And if you don't give yourself somewhere to come out of that routine, you're going to just stay stuck there. So my biggest thing is just like trying to create a little bit of time for yourself. Even if it's just like, 10 minutes in the morning, just to jot down a couple of ideas or a couple of things, or if it's 10 minutes just to, rather than watching just like a Netflix show, maybe go and look on YouTube at something that's interesting that you could learn, like a skill set you could learn.
Yeah.
And just discover, be willing to fail, be willing to find things you don't enjoy, be willing to find things that perhaps don't gel or stick with you.
Yeah.
But just, you've just got to take that little step just to...
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm right in saying, and like I live by this, failing isn't a bad thing. People think, the average person will think, oh man, wow, I didn't do this, that's it, I'm done. Nah, you learn more from failure than you do anything else. Going way back to when you first got hit, I know it sounds silly, when you got hit in that interclub. I know it wasn't a fight, but okay, you got hit. That's not you losing, that's you like, oh, wake up, no, I'm back in the zone type of thing. Okay, when you were competing in jiu-jitsu and you had that first ever competition and you come intense, that's not you failing, that's you learning. And there's a famous saying in jiu-jitsu, you either win or you learn. Simple. And I think I really want to just make everyone out there aware that failure is treat as your best friend, because you learn more from failure than you do. I've learned loads more from getting battered in that ring and that cage and losing than I ever did from winning. Does that make sense? And it's so true. And I think that motto should be huge in life, that please don't be fearful of failure. Failure, treat as your best friend, guys, if you're listening at home, okay? And use it to your advantage, guys. Use it to get some that oomph in you and go out there and fulfill your dreams. Whatever it may be, take that risk and do it. Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, literally, you just go again. And that's the biggest thing is, like, like you say, it's just, you've just got to, you're not going to find the thing you want to do straight away. You're not going to find that, everyone thinks that finding a passion is as simple as one day, I'm not doing anything, I'm going to start this thing. Bam. That's my gig, that's my thing. Yeah. Like, I've done loads of different things. Like, at one point I was DJing. Oh. And that was like something I really wanted to build up on. I've always loved my music. Yeah. But at one point I wanted to kind of, my goal was like, right, I'm going to become a DJ. I want to travel. I want to play out. I want to do this. I want to do that. And it just didn't work out. Yeah. At the time with a fitness business, trying to run a fitness business, sometimes I'd be getting in at 1, 2 in the morning and having to get up and open the gym for 6 a.m. classes. They just didn't marry up. Yeah. And I was finding myself getting into a little bit of a lifestyle where, one of the big reasons was it was affecting my personal relationship with Soph as well, because I was always out at night in the clubs and doing this sort of stuff. It was it just wasn't conducive to first of all, a good healthy relationship with fitness. Like DJing's not a healthy career. It's unsociable hours. It's, you know, you're surrounded by drink and that party environment and stuff like that. It's not always good. Sophie had moved down from Manchester. She'd taken that step to move down here, but I was out of the house sometimes 4 nights a week, and she was on her own and stuff. And it put a lot of pressure and a lot of strain on us. And I was like, it's not that important to me. Like, it's, you know, I enjoy it.
More out of enjoyment.
Yeah, that's it. What's more important to me is, like, you know, having this strong relationship. It's having my health and my fitness and my well-being and not feeling constantly tired and exhausted. So that was the one thing that I moved to the side, and it's something I could pick back up again. But it's, you know, it's finding what works for you and what works for your lifestyle. And that wasn't it for me. Like, it was, you know, it's not conducive to a healthy lifestyle necessarily. So I think the other thing I'd say is just discovering your values as well.
Yeah.
And your core values, and finding out what matters to you most. Because if you find that out, it gives you a bit more sense of direction and a bit more guidance. So one of my biggest core value is that balance aspect of life. I want to enjoy my work, I want to enjoy my training, I want to enjoy my food, enjoy like everything that I like, but not be so obsessed with one area of it that it detracts from another.
Of course.
And that's like a real big principle for me. We mentioned a bit upstairs, we were talking about the hours that we were in the gym and things like that, and just making little tweaks around timetables, things that work for us, things that are going to make sure we're delivering a great product and a great service.
Of course.
But not detracting from our own energy, which at one point we were doing sometimes 7-8 hour shifts in a row, having 2 hours off and then doing another 5 or 6 hours in the evening. And that kind of balance was tough, and it was making me enjoy the business less. I'd kind of lost sight of why we were doing it and why I started it. Like, I got into personal training to be more flexible with my own training. And like, that was one of the things I want to get back to, and that was super important. So
linked with that, you see yourself being back on the mats?
Got it, mate, 100%.
Good stuff, man. It's good.
So as much as I have like time off on his breaks, we were laughing about this. Like, who was the longest serving blue belt
in the world? In the world, is it me or you? I think that has to go down in history, man.
So, but yeah, like, same with that, but 100%. You know, you build these connections in life with people, and there's always, you know, when you build that strong bond and that strong connection, it always brings you back.
Of course.
And that's the biggest thing for me that's important with life is, you know, you don't need a huge circle. You don't need 1 million Instagram followers. No. You need the people that are there for you and like that you can develop with and that are there from day one. And like, you know, I've got no doubt in my mind, obviously when all the restrictions are over, I'll be back with Braulio training there, getting back on the mats and stuff. I've got a goal to reach my black belt. I shouldn't say this on film. I've got that goal by the time I'm 40. So I've got maximum 5 years to get that black belt now.
You will do,
which is more than achievable. But yeah, like, it's good because, you know, like I said, we stepped back, we met each other for the first time in years again today, and it's just natural. It's just
mad, isn't it?
Exactly the same when I go back and train with those guys. There's people I started with that were white belts when I was a blue belt, and they're now black belts.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's mad. It's so good.
It's all part of the journey, and I love it.
Absolutely.
And it's quite funny going in. Like, I don't mind them taking the piss a little bit and saying, "Oh, you should have been a black belt about 10 years ago."
But it's part and parcel of it, man.
Yeah,
that's part
it.
And parcel of it. But you have to admit, like, with the whole year that everyone's had with 2020 and the pandemic, we were saying this. It was tough to start with, and don't get me wrong, it still is. It still was tough, and it still is tough. But I think it's probably one of the best things that could have happened to humanity. Does that make sense? Like, I think for everyone, it's kind of given everyone a time to reflect. It's given people time. Which is something that we were suffering with. It's given people time. It's given people time to reflect. And for me, like, in my personal experience, it's given me just time to be around loved ones again. And I know it sounds silly, but that's something that I'm like, we're now back here with the gym, we're back with the everything going full force again, and it's great. But more importantly, like you just said as well, it's important that you do things from a selfish point of view for your time, and I think it's important. And I think that's one of the best things that's possibly could have happened. And the positive light behind all of this, man, is so cool. Jay, with everything that you've done and achieved, what's been it could be from a young age, who's been your biggest inspiration from it all? Who's been that idol figure you had that you anytime you've had a downtime or a difficult time and you just think, boom, I need to push myself further, and you think of something or someone, who was that for you?
It's been a tough one. Like I was having this conversation the other day. It's been a hard one to kind of nail that down. I was always trying to think about that, but I think I've just taken so many different sources of inspiration and so many different like people that have kind of brought me on this journey. That I think the biggest catalyst, I'd always say, like my defining moment will always be sat on top of that hill in Cyprus at the church with he's going to be my best man for the wedding.
Oh, amazing.
Shout out Mr. James Holmes. So like he was the one that was just like, just stop talking about it. You're doing my head in. You're boring talking about it. Go and do it. So,
fair play. But sometimes you need that harsh reality, right? Yeah.
Sometimes you just need that little slap, and then from there, it's just been a catalyst of, meeting you and Lucky was the first step in my fitness journey. And like I'll never forget that journey, walking through those doors and being able to train with you guys made me find something that I didn't know was within myself. Of
course.
And like, especially watching, although I didn't end up going down the route of like sort of professional fighting and things like that, like watching yourself on Bama and those shows, like, man, my man's killing it. And I love like seeing that progress and then seeing the way you've set up the businesses that you're running now. And I know I don't want to just blow smoke up your ass because you're here, but honestly, mate,
I appreciate it.
That's why when I saw you doing this podcast, I was like, I need to share my journey with this guy, because you've literally like turned my life around. And
thank you, man. It's great, but it's also, like I said, on the flip side of that, everything you've achieved has just been inspiring, because like I said, it was all those years ago when you said, I want to leave JLR because you're not fulfilled, and I was like, I want to leave Peugeot. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy, and like we both ended up doing it, and we're both, look how much happier we are right now. Does that make sense? So no, respect, Jay.
And then of course, like obviously meeting Victor and Braulio was like another next big step for me as well. Just watching people that being able to be so close to someone that's at the highest level of the sport, and watching their drive and commitment and how they train and their mentality, like that's such a powerful tool. So it's just having them, like I say, it's those connections.
Absolutely.
And even though I'm kind of a little bit of a traveller where I'll go in and out of things and move left and right, like I'm always drawn back to the people that started my journey, provided me, and I'll never forget that. And it's
that's amazing, man. Jay, for the listeners out there, where can people follow you on social media platforms, and where can they find you?
Wicked, man. So my personal Instagram is BFASTJ, BFASTJAY. The business is BFAST Fitness, and then we did start a podcast called Loose Gymming, which is on Spotify and iTunes at the minute, but we're going to be restarting it now. We've got settled in the gym.
Awesome.
We're back on there with Loose Gymming podcast as well. So
man, I'm looking forward to that. Respect. No, Jay, thank you again for your time as always. It's been absolutely a pleasure having you here, and for you to share your journey. And for the listeners at home, guys, I hope you've been inspired by Mr. Harper's stories. They've been absolutely amazing. And all I can do is wish you all the best and success for the future, brother. Thank you so much, man.